What's good, my YouTube fam? I'm back with another video. Tonight's video is basically gonna be just a makeup look, and then I'm also gonna do a little story time. And basically I'm gonna talk about how I found out I was pregnant and found out that I had lupus, which is an autoimmune disease. So if you're interested in watching, please continue to do so. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. So, I'm going to tell you guys how I was diagnosed. Well, so I'm going to take it back to 2014 when, at the time I had just got my bachelor's degree. Well, I was graduating from undergrad, and my husband was graduating from law school, and we decided that we were gonna treat ourselves by doing a trip to California to celebrate, us graduating. Now, prior to all of this, I had been having these weird symptoms of my joints being swollen, my, to the point where I can't barely move them or anything like that. So I was like, okay, something's not right, but I couldn't really figure out what was going on. So I had went to my primary doctor at the time, and I told them, I was like, well, I'm having this stiffness in my fingers to the point where I can't move my fingers. Now, prior to going to the doctor, excuse me, I just thought that, okay, my fingers are stiff. Maybe, I slept wrong or something like that. So, before I actually saw a doctor, it had been I want to say 2 years or so since that I've been having these symptoms in my fingers. But it was nothing serious. It was just, stiffness in my fingers to the point where I can't move them, or they were swollen. So it really didn't bother me that much, but that's why I didn't go to the doctor. So anyway, I actually got tired of the pain because it was coming more frequently. It was usually once a month or whatever, but at this point it was coming 2 and 3 times a month. So I was just to the point where I was like, you know what, I need to, go to a doctor to kind of figure out what was going on. So I went to my primary doctor, and the primary doctor told me the signs. She said, based off the things that I was telling her, it sounded like, I may have lupus. And at that point, I had no idea what lupus was. So I was just like, okay, whatever. Well, not whatever, but I was just like, okay, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but okay. So she said, I'm going to run a bunch of tests, and then I'll call you with the results of the test. So she ran tests, I want to say it took a couple of days to get the results back. And basically the results told me that I indeed had lupus. Now, mind you, I had no idea what lupus was. So I was like, okay, what is this? So obviously the doctor explained it to me what it was. And, she said to me, to be certain, I need you to go to a rheumatologist, so they can repeat your test to just, verify for sure that you have lupus. So I said, okay. So I went to that. So during that time, I had to wait for an appointment because I had picked the doctor, and this particular doctor, he actually was very booked. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to have to wait until, he has an opening. So as I'm waiting to figure out if he has an opening, I had missed my period, and, I wasn't I didn't have symptoms or anything like that, but I just wasn't I had missed my period, and I was nervous. I was like, okay, what is going on? I missed my period. What is happening? So at this point, I still hadn't seen the rheumatologist or anything like that. And I had told my husband, at the time he was my fiance. I had told him, I said, I think I might be pregnant. And he was like, all right, well, let's go to California, enjoy this trip, and then we'll come back and we'll deal with, taking a pregnancy test and all of those things. So as we're in California, I'm not feeling 100% like myself, but, I didn't really think anything of it. So at that point, my eyebrows look crazy. At that point, we had gotten back from California. I took a test, and for sure, the test was positive. And so many emotions started going through my mind because I'm just like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. And then now there's a possibility that I have some sort of disease. So I was freaking out because I was just like, I didn't know how I was going to be able to handle everything at one time. Also, the other questions that were going through my mind was, how the hell did I get lupus? Nobody in my family has it, not that I knew of. So I was just so confused. I just didn't understand like where this had come from. So at this point now, my appointment for the rheumatologist came up, and he repeated the same test as the doctor, all the blood work, just to look at the numbers to see, what everything was looking like. So he did a bunch of blood work, and then he gave me, after all the blood work was done, he gave me a call back, and he was like, you know what, based off your numbers and the test results, you indeed do have lupus. So at this point, I'm freaking out because I told him, I said, Doc, I haven't 100% confirmed yet because I haven't gone to the gyno, but I think I'm pregnant. So he was saying that, he was basically telling me like what I needed to do at this point. So he was explaining to me like, oh, it's not that, you could still have lupus and carry a baby. He was like, but you will be high risk. There's some things that you have to do, to make sure your pregnancy goes smoothly and all of those things. Now, at this point, like I said, I didn't know for sure if I was pregnant or not. So I'm like kind of freaking out because I was just like, what the hell? I said, I just got diagnosed with having lupus. And I said, now I might be pregnant. And I just didn't know like what would happen, like how everything would play out. So after he said after all these things happened, I went to my gyno, confirmed that I was pregnant, and I had told her like, oh, by the way, I did go to a rheumatologist and they did confirm that I have lupus. So she told me not to worry. She basically was saying like, people could have healthy pregnancies while they have lupus, different things. So I was just so nervous. So I was like, okay, I don't know what the heck is going to happen now. So I was so nervous because I'm just like, I need to find out what's happening. And then at this time, with lupus, there's different parts of the body that it could affect. And at this point, I was seeing my rheumatologist. I was seeing a nephrologist, which is a kidney doctor. I think I'm saying that right. And that's 3 doctors: my gyno, my rheumatologist, and then the kidney doctor. And it was just taking a lot on me. I was just so stressed out because I was just like, I don't know what's happening. And I was also seeing a high-risk doctor. And what ended up happening was, every week that I went to my appointments to check on the baby, the high-risk doctor would be like, I don't know, we might have this baby at 20 weeks. Oh, I don't know, we might have this baby at 23 weeks. But every time I hit a milestone, I was actually excited because I was just like, okay, we made it to another week. But I was getting so nervous. Like, I was just like, this is too much. And my biggest concern was that I was taking medication while I was pregnant. So I was just worried. I'm like, will this medication affect my baby? All these different things. So it was very stressful. As time went on, it just got more and more stressful because each appointment we weren't meeting the things that we needed to meet as far as like the baby growing properly and things like that. And I was just so nervous. I'm just like, at this point as a woman, you're just like, I have this illness and I'm only supposed to do one job and one job only, and that's to carry a baby to term and make sure the baby is okay. Well, in this case, I felt like I wasn't doing my job. So every appointment when the doctor told me like, oh, you're going to go in early to deliver this baby, I literally called my husband and cried because I was just like, there's no way I could deliver my baby early. Like, that stressed me out so much. I was like, I have to do something to ensure that my baby stays in to term. But in actuality, there is nothing you can do. Like, all you can do is make sure you go to your appointments and everything like that. So that's all I did. I just made sure I went to my appointments, made sure I was okay. And each week the doctor said everything was okay, but he said, I don't know, you might not make it to the next week. So as we got closer to my due date, I was getting more and more nervous. So I remember the date. It was November 1st, and it was my baby shower. The night before my baby shower, I was at my cousin's house, and my gynecologist called me, and he said, Miss Bagley, I did not like your numbers from your last test. You're going to have to deliver tomorrow. When he told me that, my whole world came crashing down. I said, how in the hell am I going to deliver my baby at 20-something weeks? Like, I was so stressed out. I was like, this cannot be. I cannot have this baby early. And I'm freaking out and I'm crying. And my cousin's like, calm down. Everything will be okay. You're not going to have the baby. They're just going to go to the hospital, do your test over to make sure you're good. And, I try to keep a positive mind, but I knew deep down inside, like, at this point, I knew, like, what, he had been telling me since day one that there was a possibility that I was going to have the baby early. So at that point, I started to try to mentally prepare myself for the fact that I was going to have my baby that day. I also was stressed out because I knew the next day was my baby shower, and my friends had planned so much of this baby shower, and I was just like, I didn't want to let them down. I knew people were coming from all over to come to the baby shower because, it was our first baby, and I was just so stressed out. So literally that night I went into the hospital. They hooked me up to the monitors. They ran tests. The doctor basically was saying, like, you know what? I'm going to monitor you, see if you're... So basically the reason why they took me in was because they didn't like the numbers of the fluid around the baby. So they wanted me to go to make sure that the fluid was okay around the baby. So I stayed overnight, and the doctor was like, okay. The next day she was like, all right, your numbers look good, so you're good. Actually, let me rewind back a little bit. So at this point, I had to call my friend who was organizing my baby shower and let her know, like, yeah, this baby shower is not a go. Like, I'm in the hospital right now. We can cancel it. And at this point, she's a real true rider because she was trying to find alternative ways to make sure that I had the best shower ever. But so she was just like, all right, we'll work it out. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out what we need to do to make sure that you still have your baby shower. So, being pregnant and all of that stuff, I was just like, you know what? If I'm not physically there, I didn't want to show my face. I was like, I don't want people to be like, why isn't she here? I didn't want people questioning me. So they were like, all right, well then, you know, your husband can come. And then I thought about it. I was like, okay, maybe he can go, you know, talk to people on my behalf or whatever. Now, this was the night before. So then the next day, the doctor came, did the test. She was satisfied with everything. And then basically she was like, you can go. And I was like, oh, thank God. So at that point, I had called my friend and I was like, oh my God, I've just been released from the hospital. We can still have the baby shower. And she was like, all right, cool. She was like, we can still do it. She was like, so we called a friend who was supposed to do my makeup. She did my makeup and all of these things. So now, after the baby shower took place, now we're at like 30 something weeks. No, actually, so now we're at 36 weeks. So now, now I'm to the point where I'm seeing the doctor weekly because that scare made the doctor scared. And she basically was like, okay, you cannot go back to work, because at the time I was working security. So she was like, you cannot go back to work. You need to be home resting. So I was like, okay. So then my appointments was weekly with every doctor. So that's the rheumatologist, the nephrologist, and the gynecologist. And I'm just like, this was so overwhelming. I was so pregnant. I was so annoyed. But I was like, you know what? In my mind, I was like, oh my God, I have to make sure I'm healthy to make sure I have a healthy baby. So I was going to the doctor weekly. So now I'm going for I was like 36 weeks pregnant. And I went for my appointment with my gynecologist. And I think this appointment was a regular, like, checkup appointment. And he measured everything, measured my numbers, measured the fluid, all of those things. And he said, you know what? He said, I don't like the numbers of the fluid around the baby. No. He said to me, the baby has not gained weight since the last appointment. So he said, at this point, we need to deliver this baby to make sure that the baby is safe. So now I'm freaking out. I get in the car and I start crying. And I tell my husband, I said, oh, shit is about to get real. I said, we really about to have a baby tomorrow. And I was so nervous because I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. The doctor also said to me, like, oh, and you're going to have a C-section. So that right there already stressed me out even more because I didn't want to have a C-section. I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to have a C-section. And the reason why I had to have a C-section was because he was breached. So that was the main reason why I had a C-section. If my son wasn't breached, I would have probably delivered him naturally. But because he was breached, I had to deliver him via C-section. So the doctor was like, all right, well, go home, have a steak, whatever. But you need to be back to the hospital and you can't eat anything by midnight. So I'm like, okay, go home. My bag was already packed because I had anticipated that I was going to deliver like way earlier. So my bag had already been packed. Went home, ate, chilled out for a while, got to the hospital. The next day in the morning, they delivered my son via C-section. And he was 4 pounds, 3 ounces, the smallest baby I've ever seen in my life. But I was so happy that he was out and safe and he had no issues and he didn't have to stay in the NICU or any of those things because he passed all his tests. He was good to go. So I was happy about that. Now, at this point, you know, I still have lupus, so I had to, after I had the baby, I had to take so many different medications. I had to take, like, a blood thinner so I wouldn't get blood clots. There was so many different medications I had to take after I had the baby, so that was a little bit stressful. But other than that, the whole delivery process and everything was pretty good. My son came out healthy, and I couldn't have asked for anything else. Like, as of now, living with with my daughter is a different story. I had my son at 36 weeks, and then my daughter, she made it all the way to 40 weeks. So, you know, if you have lupus and you're thinking of having kids, don't think that your pregnancy will be a bad one, because that's not the case. Because I think what happened with me was, I think that my first pregnancy was tough with lupus, only because I was being diagnosed with lupus at the same time of finding out that I was pregnant. So my body had not been used to any medication or anything like that. So I think that was the main reason why that happened. But with my daughter, it was different. Like, she made it all the way to 40 weeks. She was healthy. She was 7 pounds. So each pregnancy is different. Each lupus case is different. Everything is all different. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. But yeah, that's basically my story. You know, to this day, my lupus is kind of like, I want to say it's like in remission, and it has been for like a year, because when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was taken off of my medication, and the doctor was happy with my numbers. He said everything was looking good. So it's kind of been in remission right now, and I'm happy about it, because, you know, I don't have to take medicine. And my biggest thing was, I had to take a steroid. I had to take prednisone. So that was stressful. But knowing now that, you know, my lupus is in remission is kind of a happy feeling. So I'm happy about that. So yeah, that is my lupus and pregnancy story. And I hope you guys like it, and I hope the lighting is better for you guys, because your girl got a ring light. I'm out here winning. Yeah, so I'm doing my thing with my ring light, and I like it. But yeah, so guys, if you could please like, comment. I don't like this lipstick, but it's the first one I grabbed. Like, comment, and subscribe. And hit that bell notification. Oh, this lipstick is horrible. Like, it makes me look like a clown. And that is exactly why I do not like pinks and red lipsticks. Because, ooh, honey, it be really out here making me look like a clown. But anyway, so please, if you enjoyed my video, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And if you want to know anything else about me, any other topics, any other videos, please leave that in the comment box down below.